So Pastor Scott, when he found out I was coming, he said, I've got a slot to fill. Would you be willing to do a breakout session? I said, yeah, absolutely. And he emailed me like an hour later and said, I need a session title. I'm like, well, I haven't had time to actually prepare anything yet. And so I'm like, something clever. Why marketing won't grow your church? Yeah, that'll be great. He laughed and all that. Well, then he sent me the flyer that said Andy Ratliff on it.
In a way, you just marketed this class.
There we go.
Your title does.
That's it exactly. But then I realized I kind of painted myself into a corner because you came here to learn about marketing. Or I lied. No, I didn't lie.
No, I came here to learn why marketing doesn't work.
I can answer that question.
It was because of the provocative title.
Excellent. Well, I can tell you exactly why. So a little bit about me. Hi, my name is...
it doesn't work, so I want to just hear it.
No problem. My name is Adam Ratliff, not Andy Ratliff. There we go. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I'm working for the Fellowship Network doing some marketing and outreach, so obviously I believe in this topic a little bit, if it's my profession. I've been working in this field for about 15 years or so, both as a church volunteer and professionally. Most of my background is in higher education. I spent about a decade or so working for a couple of large state universities, everything from student recruitment to large-scale fundraising, kind of exploring that world. And believe me, if there's an area that wants to sell product and get butts and seats and make money, it's higher education. Government funded higher education. They really want to do that. And alongside, while I was working in the secular world, I was also volunteering in my church. And I love the local church. I love it. I believe in its mission. I believe in everything that the fellowship puts out there about we're here to be a spirit-empowered community advancing the kingdom of God. And in my local church, I got a chance to play with a lot of things. I got to build some websites and make some videos and run campaigns, and it was a lot of fun. Because I've got my feet in two ponds, the secular world and the spiritual. And something I would love to do is go online and look at ministries that I admired and look at what they were doing and get ideas, and then see if I could do my version of it. It was a lot of fun. And in higher education, we do the same thing. We look at so-and-so university that maybe just upped their enrollment, or so-and-so that just came out with a new website, or hey, this team just won the Rose Bowl. Let's go and see what they're doing. And of course, everybody copies everybody in marketing.
Yeah.
And then a movie came out that changed my life. Funny thing is, I've never actually seen this movie, but the commercials for it changed my life. It was called Monsters University. Maybe you see that? It was the sequel to Monsters, Inc. and animated. It's a cartoon. It's a kid's cartoon. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the basic premise is monsters are real, they're trying to scare kids, and in the sequel they all go to college. Well, for the marketing campaign for this movie, they put together a website for this fictional university. And it looked exactly like all of the websites I had ever made. They played off of every trope, down to the navigation. The first link is always about, and then admission, then academics, then campus life, because students like campus life. There's a video from the dean with inspirational music, beautiful drone shots over the campus. Like, it's every college recruitment cliche I've ever seen. I looked at that and I had to do some soul searching. Like, has my entire career been a lie? I've made this video before. Some of these I've made several times. I've had commercials on network TV promoting a university that was basically indistinguishable from a cartoon. And I moved on, and I still work in higher education. I still believe in it. That doesn't actually change anything because you got to make a living. But I started looking at the work I do in my local church and realized, oh boy, this is a bit of a problem. Because if you think about it, well, let me back up a second. If you want to look at what makes someone a success, let's say, for example, in the startup world, let's go big. Let's talk about like tech startups, like Uber and Apple and all that. Like, what are the things that make them a success? You listen to someone like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, and what do they say is important for success? Just throw some things out.
Innovation.
What's that? Ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. What else?
Determination.
Adding value. Yeah, what else?
Creativity.
Creativity, that's great. How many of you heard it said passion?
Yeah.
Go after your passion. What are you passionate about? Yeah, they all say that. And it's all a bunch of baloney. Because there's a lot of failed companies out there that were run by people who also had passion.
Yeah.
The founder of Pets.com had passion. right?
Yeah.
You know, like there's these spectacular failures out there that have just gone down in flames who had just as much passion for what they were doing. Passion, while it's good to have, is not a differentiator.
Yeah.
That's not the difference in the ballgame. It should be a given. You know, something that drives me nuts is when a church has a mission statement that we love God and love people. Well, yeah. Like, I hope so. I mean, that's like going to a plumber and his tagline is, "We fix your pipes good." I hope so. That's what I'm paying you for. You know, that's not a differentiation. And just like with the higher education websites, you may be doing a baseline of communication, but this isn't actually setting you apart like maybe you think it is. Which brings me back to the root of the problem. So often in church marketing and media, we're just copying the ministry we happen to admire. Let's go around the room real fast. In your type of ministry, who do you look up to? What's the ministry that you follow? Not for marketing, just in
Just
life.
the ministry.
A ministry that you're like, I look up to them.
Well, we're connected with Christ for the Nations.
Christ for the Nations, that's great.
Missionary and
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
training.
So you look up at them for spiritual oversight and
You bet.
for that's awesome. Who else? Ministry you look up to?
I look up to Church of the Harvest Youth Ministry.
Church of the Harvest. Yeah, great. Who else?
Church of the Highlands.
Church of the Highlands. Okay. Yeah, they do some great stuff. They've been very innovative.
Bethel.
Bethel. There we go. Love Bethel.
The obvious Hillsong.
The obvious. No, everyone was thinking it, but no one wanted to say it. No one wanted to say it out loud. I'm like, come on. We all know what you sung on Sunday.
Yeah.
We all know. You know, yeah. Two Hill
Every
songs,
song.
one Chris Tomlin, a Bethel, and then a wow.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead
We
and
all
throw
know.
out Elevation just because.
There we go. Yeah, elevation. You know, like everyone loves their baptism videos, so we all copy that, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just not going to grow your church.
Yeah.
Because good marketing, while it is a consistent theme, it's not the difference in the ballgame. Marketing is not what you do. You are not an advertising firm. You are a church. Your product, so to speak, is the gospel. And what you have to offer, the thing that you lead with, that never goes away. I got to give a lot of credit to the last speaker. He basically preached the first third of what I was planning to do, even down to the Kodak illustration. Like I was actually going to talk through about Kodak, they invented this and now they don't. Anyway, it's kind of mind blowing. Never forget that the main thing, the gospel, that is what drives everything, and marketing is downstream of that.
Right.
Now I will say that marketing, it is important. You have to have it, but it all flows from what the Holy Spirit is doing in you. So don't just copy the ministry you admire. Sometimes it can be a little bit embarrassing. Just like the higher education website, you can sometimes guess at a ministry's doctrine based on whose website they styled it after.
Yeah.
You know that.
I've seen it.
You've seen it, yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
Even the
You ever seen worship leaders where you're like, ooh, you dress like so and so. I
Yep.
bet you. Yeah, there you go. Right. So, and I do it too. It's not a bad thing, but never forget that marketing doesn't grow your church. Ministry grows your church. The Holy Spirit grows your church. But we do need to have marketing because without it, you're invisible to your community. And so, part two, I want to talk about why marketing has to be part of the strategy we put out. Just like the previous speaker talked about having that plan, this needs to be part of that plan downstream of your purpose and vision. So I've got one takeaway tip that might be enough. I'll put this out there and we can do the rest of the discussion. There's one thing that I've seen in the way that churches organize around their marketing, the way they deploy things. If you have this one principle in mind, it's a game changer. It changes everything else. It has nothing to do with graphics, has nothing to do with, it has to do with budgeting. Here it is. Ready? I got pens out. Approach your marketing like you would a utility, not like a one-time expenditure. When was the last time someone here bought a toaster from an appliance store?
It's in it. Someone gave it to me at my wedding.
There you go. And how often have you replaced that toaster?
Never.
Never. How many of you know that your website is not a toaster?
Right.
Right? Your toaster does one thing. It toasts bread, you put it in, it comes out. It's very simple. If it breaks, you might buy another one, but it's a fairly straightforward thing. It doesn't require a lot of maintenance. No one here has a toaster budget.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Furniture is somewhat similar, although furniture probably has a shorter shelf life than than a toaster does. Like, how long does it take for, say, a living room set to go out of style?
10 years.
10 years, sure. 15 is pushing it, but it might wear out after 8, A website, Google starts to punish the rankings if it doesn't have fresh content in a month. The style needs to be updated just to meet basic usability standards every 2 years. And your platform needs to be replaced at least every 5.
Wow.
I mean, that's what we're looking at here. So it does not make sense to look at any marketing expenditure as a one-off thing. And I see this is the number one problem I see in local churches and ministry is they'll write one big check, say, hey, we just got a new website. Now we're good.
Yeah.
I was like, no, actually putting up a website's easy. Haven't you seen those Squarespace and Wix.com commercials?
Oh, yeah.
Like it really is that easy, but that's when the work begins. It's the maintaining of the content and keeping it fresh. That's where the real work is. And so if you can just do that one thing, look at what your needs are, find a dollar amount that makes sense, what you can afford. I'm not saying up that number, I'm not saying anything, like find a number that makes sense, amortize it over 12 months, great, that's what we're gonna spend. It's an ongoing, rolling thing, just like keeping the lights on, just like the utility bill. Like you wouldn't think twice about that. You wouldn't have a board meeting to go, should we pay our sewage bill?
Right. Right.
It's not that out of date. We can let the toilet stop up for another few months. You'd never do that. You just, no, we pay it because it's what we have to do. It's your reasonable service to provide bathroom facilities to your guests. Right? Like you don't think twice about that. Same thing with marketing communications. This is as important as being in the phone book was 20 years ago. Without it, you're invisible. And so you have to just budget it the same way. That one thing, treating it as a utility expense, an ongoing budget, rather than a capital expense. That's my big takeaway right there.
Wow.
Third, I've got some just practical things that I want to run by that I think would be helpful. This is not so much a trick as it is a philosophy that you'll see applied in every type of marketing or product. Really, I think it applies to anything we do with us involving people. And that's what we call the funnel. It's not a great name. But basically, whenever you want to take someone from not involved to involved, or not a customer to a customer, or unsaved to saved, whatever that process is, there's 3 steps involved. The first step is always affinity. Basically, I like that thing. I had never had Waffle House before I came down to Texas. About 4 years ago, I had heard about it, and I heard this sounds good. Someone told me about it, oh my gosh, it's huge amounts of breakfast food for not a lot of money. I'm like, ooh, I'm not ready to buy yet, because I don't live near there, but I'm interested. Second step. Engagement. I went on the website and found out where my nearest Waffle House was and discovered on a business trip in a few months, I'm gonna have one right next to my hotel. So I engaged with it. I went on their website and I made a little note. I haven't bought anything yet. They have not seen a single dollar from me, but I engaged. Step 3, and you're gonna love this word, conversion. This is what they actually say in the marketing world, even though they don't realize what it means in our world. Like we think conversion is like, I once was lost, now I'm found. Exactly! You once didn't know about my product, and now you do. Conversion is when you go onto that website and click buy.
Yeah.
Go ahead and check out from the cart. That's conversion. And so when a marketer is trying to push a product, they're thinking about these 3 steps. I want to sell my brand of shoes. You've never heard about my shoes. You don't have any affinity for my brand because you know about Nike, you know about Adidas, you don't know about Andy's shoes. My name's not Andy, but you don't know about Andy's shoes. So I need to create affinity before I can get a sale. So the first thing I do is I make commercials, I buy some Facebook ads, I get you exposed to it, I give you a reason to like it. Maybe it's the story that I tell, maybe I make up some sham story about for every pair you buy, I give them away, and that's actually a good thing. All that's a lie, but anyway, I build affinity for the brand. Look it up. Tom does not exist. Tom Shoes, he's not actually a real person. It was a marketing plan to build affinity for a product that didn't exist yet. They got people to engage with it, made them want it, and then people bought it. 1, 2, 3. Think about this, let's say you want to invite someone to church. They're not just gonna boom, go to church. You gotta build a relationship first. That relationship's probably going to involve a conversation, and then maybe eventually they'll come and do that thing, whatever it is. Or being a part of a small group. Someone's already attending, you want to move them from attending to maybe leading a group. Well, hey, do you like the idea of spiritual growth? You build affinity for that topic. Engagement. Hey, would you come to a small group training where we can teach you more and you can learn more? And then, yeah, I want to sign up and be a small group leader. This concept right here, affinity, engagement, conversion, that's the funnel. The reason we call it a funnel is because it always starts with a big net and narrows down. That's the funnel. When you're doing your marketing, you gotta think of it the same way. I'll just say a website is a given. It's as important as being in the phone book used to be. Without it, you're invisible to the community. But it's important to know your website is about the community finding you. It's gonna show up in organic search. Hopefully, if someone types churches and they're in your zip code, your website will come up. That's about the community finding you. Social media is about you finding the community. And it's very important to understand the difference between those two things. Driving people to your website, I mean, that's kind of a spammy mentality. Like, how do I coerce people to look at my stuff? No, your website's there for the people who are already looking. If it's 3 a.m. and someone's at a low point and they want to find a church that meets their needs, you want to be on that list when they search it, right? In a separate category is where you go out to your community. People are already on their Facebook feeds, they're already scrolling, and you want to find a way to integrate yourself in that conversation. Social media is the way to do it. And that's involving having updated relevant content. You want to make sure that you keep things fresh, and there's lots of best practices there that, believe me, you can spend 10 hours on seminars on that, and I can't really get into it, but understand the difference between those two things. Advice for building a quality website. I would say the number one thing that you need to do, and probably the most neglected, is quality copywriting. Almost no one ever hires writers anymore, which is kind of a waste, but I would say it's the most important thing with your website. Make sure you have well-written professional text and don't just delegate that to a secretary. Like, it's worth it, spend a couple $100, find a copywriter, write good quality copy. Second is photography. Yes?
So copywriting, are you talking about editing or actual copywriting? Because I was told that once you publish content out on a website, you are copyrighted.
Okay, so
you're talking about editing.
copywriting is different than copyright the noun. Copyright the noun is a legal term. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the act of creating original text.
W.
Yeah, correct. Does that make sense?
Actually, I think the difference is the content. What you're saying is
right
versus.
Yeah.
I think she's.
Yeah. So I'm just basically talking about creating content.
Okay, I just thought if you put the copyright on the bottom.
Not copyright.
Yeah.
But I'm
copyright
for original.
Copyright.
Okay.
Copywriting.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wrote it and you can prove that you wrote it, you actually don't even need to put the little symbol at the bottom. That's a common misconception. You don't actually have to register with the Copyright Office. You just show that you wrote it first. You're good. I see people all the time mark up their articles with a big old notice at the bottom, don't steal this text. I wasn't gonna steal this text, but okay. But make sure that your website has well-crafted copy. Copy is another word for the written word.
Okay, sorry.
No problem at all. I appreciate clarification. So copy, most important, photography. You can communicate more in a picture at a glance than you can with well-written words. Thing is, Google doesn't know what a photo is because it's a robot, so you need to have well-written copy that is done in the right order. Photography, though, is so critical. When I go to your website, I want to see your ministry. I don't want to see stock photography. I don't want to see people that are not from that town, that are not there. I want to be able to go to your church and go, oh yeah, I've seen them before in some way. That's actually one of the things we're working on with the Fellowship Network's website. There's a lot of stock photography. We are fixing that.
Yes.
Thank you for taking pictures there in the back. Appreciate it. Seriously, that's what it's at. There is no substitute for just getting out there and taking pictures. There's no shortcut there. So make sure that in your ministry, at some level, you're regularly updating that queue. And third, I'd put branding and design. I'm a huge branding guy. Should I spell this right? I hire graphic designers all the time to build logos that look good and work well, but I hire them third. If I had to choose between the three, I would just have a single page with well-written text and no images at all. If I had then had budget and time, I would add a few images. And then if I really wanted to go for broke, I would make a new logo. A snappy new logo is not going to bring revival to your church. It's just not. You know, there are plenty of successful churches out there with terrible websites. You ever heard of Joel Osteen?
Yeah.
Terrible website. Doesn't matter one bit. He's still drawing 45,000 people into his renovated stadium. It's amazing. Marketing won't save your church. Ministry will save your church. But you need to have that downstream so that the community can find you and you can engage with the community. I've got a ton of other stuff I could talk about, but the whole point of a breakout is that we can have a discussion. What do you guys want to talk about? Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I think probably everyone in here that's involved in ministry struggles with knowing that they need to update that website. They need to put their sermons in some form on the internet so that their people from across the country can listen to them, their podcast, to announce their events on social media,
Right.
all of those things. But where the failure a lot of times, especially on a medium to small church scale, is, and from experience I know, the failure is I don't have time to do that along with all of the other things I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So what is a practical thing where we can take this information, all that stuff, what are some tools? I'm not saying
No, that's great.
you can't give general answers. I'm asking for more specifics.
Well, I'll give a general answer that will lead to a fairly obvious specific. What if we were to take this exact same question but replace it with worship?
Okay.
I don't have time to lead worship. What are some tools that I can use to fill that gap? What would you say?
Delegation, I guess.
Would you say outsource? Would you say buy a tool? Would you spend a lot of money?
I mean, there's always backing tracks or Ableton. You make it run Ableton.
Sure, but that's a tool to help you with your team. That doesn't clone you. That doesn't get you a second worship pastor.
Sure.
Yeah, it all comes back to team, and there's no shortcut for that.
Delegation.
And that's why I titled this "Why Marketing Won't Grow Your Church," because so often it's seen as a magic wand.
Sure.
I just write this check
Yeah.
to this particular company. They're going to solve all my problems, and they're going to cash your check, and you're going to come up with some nice collateral, and then that collateral will get stale, and the website will go out of date, and the Facebook page will say no posts, and the Twitter feed will have nothing. Like, there's no substitute for having a team that's working on it regularly.
Yeah.
You do the same thing with your outreach. You do the same thing with your small groups, right?
Yep.
You don't have more small groups than you have leaders to lead them.
Right.
There's no way to delegate that, shortcut it. Treat marketing the same way. If you don't have the team to support a podcast, then don't start a podcast page. That's okay. That's okay. You're not a bad leader for not having a podcast page. It's really all right. Avoid the temptation to have some company take care of it. They're just going to take your money. Like, they're not. There's no substitute for having a real team and real volunteers. And so I know that's kind of a tough answer. But just treat it like any other area of ministry in your church. You have to have the team to support it. In our church, we are a church of about 500 in a relatively small town. So we're big for our town, but we're not a huge church. We're not a mega church. And I planted seeds 7 or 8 years ago in certain volunteers that I'm seeing come up now, to the point where we are able to support a large 6-camera video shoot over Sunday morning services for the live stream. We have 8 or 9 websites. We have 3 photographers taking pictures all the time. Like, we have that, but it's because 8 years ago I invested in some young people, and they came up, they got experience, and we didn't move too quickly. And so now I'm very proud of what we've been able to build. We have very large web services, maybe disproportionate to the size of our church, but that didn't happen overnight. It wasn't fluff. And so I would say, don't force it. Don't force it. Take the time to invest in people. Something that was said, I think it was alluded to by Pastor Scott. It's important to remember that when we're marketing our churches, we're not selling snake oil.
Right.
This is the gospel. It's worth doing well.
Yeah.
It's worth doing well. So take all this
Absolutely.
as best practices. It's not going to grow your church, but if it's done well, it will honor the gospel, and people's lives will be changed. It's worth doing well. So anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you guys very much.
Yes.